Hello, papery people of the internet. If you're a big Paper Mario fan like I am, you might have heard of a new release that came out recently on Switch called Bug Fables. Yes, this game takes a lot of inspiration from Paper Mario, and before we dive into the review, I think it's pretty important to get a quick history recap on Paper Mario to see where this game fits into the Paper Mario history. Let's get started.
The year is 2000, and the world was graced with the very first Paper Mario game, an RPG that promises to be fantastical and wacky, as stated in this very dated commercial.
New enemies with funky attacks!
The game is a simple take on turn-based RPGs, with low damage numbers and action commands that let you do extra damage in battle. It also introduced partners who could help you in battle, badges that let you customize your character, and experience that allowed you to choose which stat you want to invest in, BP, HP, or FP. Fast forward to 2004. Thousand Year Door was released on GameCube, and it's another smash hit, improving on the original in almost every way. It was a nearly perfect sequel, and yet again, the fandom rejoiced. And this is where the story takes a turn. 3 years later, the latest game in the series, Super Paper Mario, is released on Wii. But wait, it's different. Gone is the turn-based combat. Gone is the interconnected world. Gone are the badges and the ability to level up a specific stat. People were definitely irked by this entry, but oh, if only they would have known what the future held for the Paper Mario series. Paper Mario Sticker Star released on the Nintendo 3DS in 2012, and at first, huzzah! Turn-based combat has returned! The series is going back to its roots, right? Right? Wrong! Despite having turn-based combat, there was no experience system, and your character couldn't even level up, and the lovely badge system and partners were pushed aside in favor of disposable stickers. The fans were enraged, figurative pitchforks were raised, and the outcry for a new entry like the N64 and GameCube entries was higher than ever. But alas, the outcries fell on dead ears, and the fans were dealt another blow in 2016 when Paper Mario Color Splash came out for the Nintendo Wii U. No partners, no experience, no interconnected world. Classic Paper Mario was as good as dead. So here we are today, wondering if we'll ever get a classic Paper Mario ever again. But hey, what's this? Bug Fables? A papery-looking turn-based RPG with partners, badges, experience? That allows you to level up your TP, HP, and badge points when you level up? Could it really be so simple? Just make a game that's just like the original Paper Marios? Could a small indie studio really match the quality and polish of a first-party Nintendo title? Well, there's only one way to find out. Let's get into the review and talk about Bug Fables' story. In Bug Fables, you take control of a newly comprised explorer team, composed of Kabu, V, and Leaf. The world of Bulgaria is full of explorers just like you who protect the villages and explore for the legendary artifacts, which once collected are said to lead to the Everlasting Sapling. With various motivations for finding the Everlasting Sapling, our ragtag team of adventurers sets off in search of the artifact, and ultimately, the sapling. Looking at just the basic premise of this story isn't too incredible, but later on in the game, they do keep things fresh with some interesting twists and turns in the story. The story splits into several different chapters, each of which focuses on a different region of Bulgaria that you explore. However, unlike Paper Mario, each chapter story is much less of a separated side story and more of something that just pertains to the game's overarching plot. This allows for some exciting twists and turns in the overarching story and tells a more cohesive tale than Paper Mario does, but sacrifices the chance to have these interesting side stories in each chapter. Comparing the first chapter with a Paper Mario game, in Paper Mario Ttyd's Chapter 1, you go spelunking in ancient ruins to discover keys to a dragon's keep, and then you storm the castle, disarming traps, and fighting the undead. And the whole experience is capped off with a fight against the dragon himself. In Bug Fables in Chapter 1, you go into like a spooky cave, you fight some bugs, and then a spider, and okay, we got the artifact, we're done here. Okay, it's not quite that bland, but the scope of the chapter's stories really isn't even comparable to Paper Mario. But what is done well in Bug Fables is the party members' backstories. Without going into too much spoiler territory, it's revealed pretty early on in the game that each of your main party members have a different motivation for their journey. Kabu is driven by his grief, V is driven by her greed, and Leaf is driven by his past. As you go along the main story, you'll be drip-fed little pieces of the backstory of each team member here and there, and each team member's backstory is then climaxed with a party member's specific side quest. Compare this to characters in Paper Mario where you only get a glimpse of their backstory occasionally, like Vivian or Bobbery. Bug Fables takes its time to slowly develop its characters over the course of your whole adventure, and it was always exciting to learn which party member's homeland you were going to next so you could discover their mystery and unravel the secrets behind their backstory. The gameplay is just like Paper Mario, where it's split into the overworld exploration section and the turn-based battle section. As you explore the overworld, if you bump into an enemy, you'll start a battle, and just like in Paper Mario, you can first strike the enemy if you get a hit on them in the overworld, and vice versa if you get hit by the enemy. Achieving the first strike allows you to get an extra turn in battle to attack. But before I go any further into the battle system, I think it's best we do a quick compare and contrast of Paper Mario's battle system to see if this game is a one-to-one ripoff or truly something of its own caliber. So in general, fights play out pretty similar in both games, as you'll use your characters to attack the enemies one at a time with items, special attacks, and standard attacks in Bug Fables, just like in Paper Mario. Each attack will have an action command that you'll have to execute in order to do extra damage, many of which are blatantly similar to Paper Mario, and when enemies attack, you'll have to block their attacks with a timed A button press. If you time your block okay, you'll block 1 damage, but if you block superbly, you'll get a super guard and block 2 damage. This is slightly different than Paper Mario's absurd super guard, which blocks all damage and damages the enemy, but it's also a lot harder to time than Paper Mario. So now, on to how the battle system differs. First is the attack bonus that a party member receives from being in the front of the group. Simply put the character at the front of the party and they will receive a 1 damage attack bonus. But being put in the front also puts them at the disadvantage of being a more likely target for enemies. Second is the relay system, which allows you to freely allocate your party members in whatever ways you wish to use them. You can use 1 move with each character or stack all 3 attacks on your strongest party member. But be careful. For each consecutive attack a party member does, it'll do 1 less damage. This does a very good job at stopping you from abusing the turn relay too much. The last difference with this battle system is that each party member specializes in fighting different types of enemies. If an enemy is flying, only V the bee can hit it, and if an enemy is buried underground, you have to hit it with Leaf's ice attack. And if that enemy has strong defense, Kabu's horn is the one for the job, since it not only ignores 1 damage with its piercing ability, but it can also flip an enemy, lowering their defense to 0. This gives each of the party members a lot of usefulness, but it also limits how you'll be able to approach battles, since you're kind of required to do it with a certain character depending on the enemy. And it feels like it limits your options just a little bit. But in the end, the battle system adds just enough new mechanics to make it unique and keep things fresh when compared to the original Paper Mario. And with the battle done, let's talk about exploration. So the world is jam-packed with goodies to find, and to get many of these, you'll have to use your overworld abilities to collect them. Each character has multiple abilities that they'll unlock throughout the course of the game, which will slowly allow you to access more and more of the world. I really enjoy these abilities, as most of the time, they're unlocked for some kind of unique story reason and align with the moment of character development. The same kind of story events also unlock new special moves for you to use with your team, but if I'm being honest, I pretty much never used any of these later special moves, which I'll explain why in a bit. The overworld is also packed with a variety of puzzles that you'll need to use these abilities on, which offers a nice change of pace from the hectic battles. Now this game's difficulty I found to be pretty dynamic. Most of the reason for this is because there's a badge in the game called Hard Mode, which makes all enemies stronger, and when you have this badge equipped, you receive more experience and rewards for battle. I had this badge equipped the whole game, and it gave me a nice clean difficulty curve. Bosses took a few tries to beat sometimes, but they were always beatable. But then, about halfway through the game, something happened, and the game cracked. But why did the game's difficulty crack? Well, to answer that, it's time for a quick aside about badges. Yes, just like Paper Mario, this game has BP, which you can use to equip certain badges to your character. At the beginning of the game, you have your standard badges like HP ups, TP ups, some status effect badges, but really nothing too special that'll change up your game plan. At this point in the game, I was quite impressed since as far as I knew, there were 0 badges that raised your attack, like Power Plus, P Up and D Down, and Mega Rush, which were infamous for making Paper Mario super easy. But without being able to rely on these attack up badges, I realized I really had to strategize and claw my way to every victory of the boss fights. But then, it happened. In relatively quick succession about halfway through the game, I got this game's equivalent of P Up D Down, Power Exchange, which raised my attack by 1 and lowered my defense by 1. And then I got a badge that let me raise my attack by 3 for the low price of sacrificing 5 health. And these badges just kept snowballing and snowballing until I had a bonus attack of 7 on V. Sure, she was a glass cannon with like no defense, but that hardly mattered when I could just take out bosses in 2 turns. The game suddenly became a breeze, and no enemy posed much of a threat at all. Except of course the final boss, which took more tries than I'd like to admit. I'm a little bummed this game's difficulty dropped so intensely halfway through the adventure, but I suppose the easier difficulty is thanks to the many side quests I did along the way, and I have to admit there is an appeal to being overpowered. It's just much less interesting to play through that way in my opinion. So I already talked about the party member specific side quests, but there are many more side quests outside of those. Most of these side quests will give you something new to do in old areas, like find a hidden item or fight a secret boss. Of course, most interesting are these secret bosses, some of which can be found pretty early in the game and will really mess you up if you're not prepared. There's also an area that's somewhat similar to the Pit of 100 Trials, where you have to fight hordes of enemies all in one go without saving. For every 10 battles that you finish, you'll get a cool item or a badge. And I saved the best side quest for last, which is this completely optional card game. The card game is nothing too complex, you simply have to try to keep your attack higher than your opponent each turn. But some different card types and effects keep it pretty interesting. What is really cool about this card fight is how each enemy that you scan in battle gives you that enemy's card that you can put in your deck. A neat little bonus on top of knowing the enemy's health in battle. This card game side quest takes you all across Bulgaria in order to find the 4 card masters, and once you defeat all of them, you gain access to the tournament on Duelist Kingdom, Metal Island, and in one last epic tournament, you duel to become the King of Games. This is 100% better than any side quest in Paper Mario. Hands down. Also, you duel this guy called Boogio, and he talks about his grandpa who entrusted him with his deck, and that's, oh my god, that's so good. That's so just the best side quest.
So, is Bug Fables the Paper Mario sequel we always wanted? Or is it just some kind of shameless knockoff? Let's get to the scoring and find out. So, we're going to go over the 4 topics we talked about so far and give them scores out of 10. We have story, gameplay, difficulty, and the side quests. So, starting off with story, a pretty by-the-numbers story for this game, but it's got a couple exciting twists and turns and some incredible backstory for those main party members. So for that reason, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Next, we have gameplay, which brings back all the stuff we love from classic Paper Mario. You got partners, you got badges, you got HP, you got FP, you got BP, the whole works is there. And they even added some new features, like rallying turns and situational buffs, depending on where your party members are standing in formation. So, because it kept that cozy feeling of the original Paper Mario battle system and gave us some new interesting mechanics to play around with, I'm gonna have to give it a 9 out of 10. Next is the game's difficulty. And I have to say, personally, for me, when I played on hard mode, the difficulty was perfect as can be. Up until the point where I got some attack up badges, and the whole thing kind of just crumbled apart and it became way too easy. But I have to applaud them for giving you this hard mode badge that gives you extra experience, badges, and items for fighting enemies at a harder difficulty, and gives you some incredibly challenging boss fights in the early game, and an incredibly challenging final boss. And it's also nice that they have 2 different levels of difficulty for different levels of player. So for difficulty, I'm gonna have to give it an 8 out of 10. And lastly, we have side quests. And some of these side quests are phenomenal, like the Duelist Kingdom side quest where you go and fight a card game on an island, or the backstory side quests with partners that allow you to learn all about your partners and sometimes even have a whole new dungeon to explore and a new boss to fight that's incredibly difficult. I'm having flashbacks of so many attempts. But these side quests are well worth their efforts, and because of their large variety, large rewards, and just large entertainment value you get out of them and playtime, I'm gonna have to give side quests a 9 out of 10. So, for our final score of Bug Fables, I'm going to be generous today and I'm going to round up. So we're going to give the final score of Bug Fables a 9 out of 10. So, I think Bug Fables definitely fills in the shoe of a new Paper Mario spiritual successor. Although I don't think it's quite as good as the originals, it definitely does a pretty gosh darn good job. So, if you're a big fan of Paper Mario, or just a big fan of RPGs on the Switch, I would definitely recommend picking up Bug Fables for your Nintendo Switch. It's an incredible game for an incredible price, and you will have an incredible time. I've said incredible enough, so I think I'm gonna bug out.
Hey guys, it's me, Drenkaz. Hope you enjoyed today's video. If you're looking for more content like Bug Fables, well, you can also check out my Paper Mario, Classic Paper Mario versus Modern Paper Mario video, or if you want something a little different, I also go through the series evolution of a couple different series, such as Metroid and Luigi's Mansion. So if you want more of my content, go check that out, and don't forget to like, comment, and whatever. And yeah, if you enjoyed Bug Fables or are thinking about getting it, leave a comment below, and we can chat about it there. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and I will see you later.